The Barbarian Betrayal, Chapters 32 and 33, Allies in Shadow. It is confirmed, Admiral, the enemy has retreated to Xuj. For the moment, they seem content to remain there. Admiral Matavosian nodded as he listened to the Diaksh. Which is why we have to expedite Phalange, he said. I find it extremely unlikely that the... He froze, cocking his head. Just what we supposed to call them now, anyway. Masters obviously is no longer accurate. An evil Ronin is going to make folks distrust our own even more, after all that's happened. Jiaj Guyaz dismissed his concerns with an airy wave of his hand. What we call them does not matter, he said, as long as we destroy them to the last. Yeah, about that. The Admiral rubbed his face before fixing the Konheim leader with a stern look. I don't want you going off half-cocked before we're ready. With what we're bringing to Xuj, we might have a chance. But if you go it alone, you'll be slaughtered. The Diaksh chuckled. Your concern is most appreciated, Admiral. Matavosian managed not to roll his eyes. Barely. My concern has less to do about you than it does the ships under your command. We'll need those ships to pull off Phalange, so don't do anything stupid and get them all shot up. It is a good thing we are in agreement regarding strategy, Admiral, Jiaj said, choosing his words with care. Otherwise, I would take issue with you giving me orders. While my fleet and that of Admiral Otsoa are joined and she has accepted my command, I do not accept yours. The temperature dropped a good 20 degrees as the two men stared at one another, before the human admiral spoke in low, clipped tones. The Marshal has placed me in overall command of Phalange, and right now it's the only plan out there that gives us even a prayer of victory. We are bringing the bulk of the resources needed to this fight. So I need to know one thing, Diaksh. He leaned forward, eyeing him. Will you grant me tactical command of your ships when we liberate Xuj, or are we going to have a problem? The seconds dragged on as Jiaj chose his words carefully before speaking. A commander in these matters should be the one best suited, most qualified for the role. After consulting with Admiral Otsoa regarding your Operation Phalange, it is my opinion that in this case, that individual is you. The Konheim gave him a wan smile. It is only because of the unique nature of the plan that I agree to this. Were it an operation that played to my strengths? Fair enough, Matavosian replied, grateful for what he could get. We're in the process of gathering our forces now. Once that is done, we'll proceed to Xuj as quickly as possible. You have my word, Diaksh. The Konheim leader inclined his head in gratitude. We will continue to monitor the system and inform you of any changes, Admiral. I look forward to your arrival. As do I, his human counterpart answered. As do I. The Prime Minister handed over her report. Our latest figures show that we have reclaimed over 63% of the infected Ronin, Minister, she smiled. We hope to reach 85% within the week. Minister Lambda 516 Tensor Pi accepted the data and perused it carefully before allowing his metal chassis to relax. This is welcome news, Prime Minister, he said gratefully. How long before all my people have been restored? We don't have a good answer to that, I'm afraid, Leandra sighed. There's simply too many factors involved. Our best guess at the moment suggests a 95% cure rate in 1 to 2 months. After that, she spread her hands. Chasing that last 5% could be the work of years. You must bring them all back, the Ronin minister insisted. My people have suffered greatly in this war. We were both its first victims and its last. We are still tallying the losses, and it is likely they will run into the millions. He faced the Prime Minister and said, losses caused by Tetrarchy forces. His lack of the normal visual clues made it difficult to gauge his feelings in this manner, leaving her to fall back on her belief of how she would react were the situations reversed. We had no choice, she said quietly. Once the quarantine failed, once we lost containment, we had no other choice. We knew what they had been programmed to do, and we couldn't let that happen. As it was, we still lost several worlds to their efforts. She didn't want to press the issue, but Leandra at least wanted it on the table. The Ophipteran world Exukix had been just the tip of the iceberg. We grieve for those lost, he intoned, and that at least she believed. The Ronin were no more sanguine about killing than their triumvirate fellows. But there is an even greater issue before us, Prime Minister, he said stiffly, and she braced herself for what was coming. Operation Blackout. Leandra had been waiting for that shoe to drop. Minister, it is my role to look out for the safety of all Tetrarchy citizens. Blackout was to be used only when all other avenues had been exhausted. Thankfully, a cure was discovered in time. Prime Minister, it will be many, many long years before the Ronin will be able to put what happened behind us, Lambda 516, Tensor Pi said darkly. In an instant, we were transformed into murderous savages, and while we regret the steps taken to prevent my race from harming others, we recognize the necessity. The AI rose to its feet. But genocide is something we may not be able to forgive. I hope you're wrong, Minister, she replied, rising as well. But given the fact that the infected Ronin were prepared to wipe out all the races of the Tetrarchy, blackout was the only option left to us, had no cure been found. She fixed the machine with a hard stare. Or were you suggesting we simply bare our throats when your infected brethren came calling? The minister began to reply, but Leandra cut him off. We still have a war to win, and the rest of your people to rescue, she snapped. You wish to condemn our methods of survival? That is your right, but it will wait until after we've defeated our enemies. Not before. Lambda 516 Tensor Pi turned and stormed towards the door, pausing just before he exited. This is not over, Prime Minister, he warned. And when the war has finally ended, I will see you removed from this office for your actions against the Ronin people. The minister spun away and pushed his way out of her office. Only if I'm lucky, she muttered. Tango entered the general's quarters and found him staring out into the vastness of space. She leaned against a bulkhead and folded her arms across her chest. A credit for your thoughts, she said. Nasat was silent for some time. How are they progressing? He said at last. Not bad, all things considered, she answered. They've got guts, that's for sure. Her eyes twinkled in the soft light. But then, considering their parentage, I'd expect nothing less. Do not attempt to sway me with flattery, Tango, the Sauratar said quietly. Not now. She sighed and wandered over to the sideboard, pouring herself a drink. I was being serious, she replied before finding a comfortable chair and plopping down into it. I've seen you and Raikrit both in action, you may recall. I meant every word. The widowed general's head bowed at the mention of his long-dead wife. I just wanted to keep them safe, he whispered. I cannot understand this obsession of theirs, this desire to place themselves in harm's way. Not only that, but at the spear's very tip. Finally, he turned away from the monitor and faced her. Where did I fail them? The human just shook her head. You didn't, boss, she told him, taking a sip of her drink. They just see the universe differently than you do. Nasat snorted in disgust. Easy for you to say, he said sharply. A human child choosing to become a warrior is a matter of pride. My children, however, are not human. I'd noticed, Tango chuckled. The hooves were a dead giveaway. You mock me? He snarled. By what bizarre human custom do you think gives you the right? This has nothing to do with my humanity, she fired back. The reason your children chose this life? My world instead of yours? It's because they grew up in a universe where war was a real, palpable reality, and you didn't. Even now, after all these years, you still can't accept that things have changed. You keep hoping your universe will go back to the way it was. Tango rose to her feet, drink in hand. Newsflash, it won't. Nasat turned away, attempting to hide from her words. The world you grew up in was a fantasy, Nasat, a false utopia based on a lie. That it lasted as long as it did is a damned miracle, though given what we know about the Ronin now, it's probably because they murdered the competition. He turned back to face her. And what of your kind? He demanded. Have you not told me how your own people long dreamed of the very peace mine helped you discover? Before the Konhim Earth had not seen war in a century. Tell me, when in your long bloody history had that happened? Never, she admitted. But that peace came with a price, Nasat. It was coerced from us, making it just as false as yours. I'll grant you, the triumvirate did us some good, and helped us mature. But we always knew in the back of our minds it couldn't last. Why do you think Vegetius was conceived? Why we created the guilds and the reenactments? Tango looked him in the eye. It was because we always knew that this day would come, and we were determined to be ready. The aging Sauratar's head bowed once more. I would do anything to keep them from this, he said softly. I know, Tango answered, and so do they. But unless you're prepared to lock them away, you'll have to find a way to make peace with this. She went to his side, placing a hand on his shoulder. I know you're terrified of losing them, like the way you lost Rekret, she said gently, but this is their life, and their choice. Nasat looked at her, his eyes wet. Watch over them, will you? Tango smiled. I always do. The Prime Minister and Marshal Fujimoto had just seated themselves and accepted cups of tea when the large monitor came to life. Admiral Matavosian, Leandra said with a nod. What's your status? It's been a juggling act and a mad scramble, ma'am, he shrugged. But at this point, we're as ready as we're going to be. He tapped an icon on his console, splitting the screen and showing them an exterior view of the fleet. Squadrons of ships and lines of transports, freighters, and support vessels hovered in space like schools of sharks. It's the biggest fleet ever assembled in the history of the quadrant, he said with pride. We've stripped the cupboards bare and them some for this mission, Prime Minister, but I have left you enough smaller vessels to finish spreading the cure for the Ronin plague. With the technique General Nasat and his people came up with, it should be enough. The feral grin on Helene's face was eloquent. Damn, I wish I was going with you, she said with a palpable sense of yearning. But you've done damn fine work, Admiral. Damn fine. Thank you, ma'am, he smiled. I couldn't agree more, Leandra chimed in. And the fleet waiting to join you at Gazooj? I think the Diaksh and I have an understanding, he answered, his expression thoughtful. He promised to maintain a discreet presence until we arrive, but... He paused, marshalling his thoughts before plunging on. I know this forced idleness chafes at him, Prime Minister, and part of me is concerned he may do something rash, even with Adelaide Otsoa riding herd on him. Leandra sighed. I'd like to tell you your fears are unfounded, but I'd be lying. Patience isn't exactly one of Jiaj's strengths. That being said, I'm not without some slight influence, she smirked, and I believe I can help convince him to wait for your arrival. That would be most appreciated, Prime Minister, Matavosian told her, not to mention taking a big chunk of my worries off my shoulders. Now you get there as quick as you can, Admiral, Marshal Fujimoto cautioned. Last thing we need is for them to come boiling out of Gazooj and head off God knows where. I don't think we have to worry about that, he said after a moment. It's only a gut feeling, but I think they want us to come. An ambush, you mean? She said slowly. Yes, ma'am, he agreed. Like I said, it's only a hunch, but it would explain why they've bunkered in so tightly in the Gazooj system. Yes, it would, damn it, Helene swore. Well, there's nothing for it. We're committed to Phalange, so keep your eyes and your gun ports open. You can count on it, Marshal, Matavosian agreed. Good luck, Admiral, Leandra chimed in. I don't need to tell you just how much is riding on this. No, ma'am, you don't, he said quietly. You have my word that we'll finish this, once and for all. He nodded to both women before blanking the screen. Fujimoto turned to the Prime Minister. And just how are you going to keep the Diaksh from going off half-cocked? She demanded. He doesn't exactly respond well to being strong-armed, as you may recall. Leandra's smile rivaled the Cheshire Cat's. Now, Helene, I would never attempt to force Jiaj. Perish the thought. Then how do you plan on getting him to play ball if he doesn't feel like playing? She pressed. I don't tell you how to plan a campaign, the Prime Minister said in exasperation. So perhaps you could return the favor and stop joggling my elbow while I deal with the politics. Bah! Have it your way, Helene groused, rising to her feet. Messy business anyway. She crossed the office, making for the exit, when something made her pause. I just hope you realize how important that fleet is to the plan, she warned, before taking her leave. Shaking her head, Leandra pressed a key. Prepare my next appointment, she ordered. I'll be there shortly. Prime Minister Singh, you have my assurance we will be sending all that we can to support your Operation Phalange, Chikij Kaujak informed her, though our resources are nowhere near as large as the Tetrarchies. Every little bit helps, Leandra smiled, but I must disagree with that statement. A dark look came across the Konhim woman's features. I beg your pardon? She said stiffly. It's our operation. The Konhims as well as the Tetrarchies, she chuckled, as the Deputy Diaksh's features softened. Of course, Chikij smiled in return, Though I must point out it was conceived by your forces, not ours, and you are providing most of the ships and necessary components to make it work. Immaterial, she said with a wave of her hand. As my own people are fond of saying, we are all in this together. That we are, the Konhim agreed as the smile disappeared. Which brings me to the subject we have both been dancing around. She regarded the human for a moment, and then asked, when this is over, assuming we are victorious, what happens next? Ah, Leandra murmured. An excellent question indeed. A tiny smile played at her lips. It's obvious the current state of affairs is no longer viable, Madam Deputy, she said carefully, and neither side wishes another war between us. A cloud flashed briefly before her eyes as she slowly nodded. I do not think my people could survive another war, Chickage said quietly. Pride would normally keep me from admitting that, but I suspect I am not telling you anything you do not already know, and we dare not make a misstep now. Neither of us can afford it. No, we can't, the Prime Minister agreed. The last 30 years have left a stain on all of our races, one that will take generations to expunge. She cocked her head. And Jiaj? Where does he stand? The Konhim sighed. The Diaksh is a man torn, I fear, she confided. His head tells him one truth, but his heart says something very different. He has lived his life steeped in the traditions of my race, but now he may recognize the need for change, but he will always be a reluctant participant in the process. Your people were a race built on war, Leandra said bluntly, though mine can make the same claim. And yet through it all, we have longed to set aside that part of our nature. It was only our discovery of the triumvirate that made it possible. While contact with the Konhim took that away, Chickage grimaced. It was unfair to your race, getting caught up in the middle of an ancient feud. We made our choice, the Prime Minister shrugged. Though if we had been in possession of all the facts, we may have chosen differently. We can't change the past, no matter how much we may wish to. Leandra sighed. Be that as it may, there is a small concern regarding the Diaksh and his participation in Phalange, she informed her, finally getting to the point. There are those that fear he may decide honor demands he attack now before our fleet arrives. I pray, that is not so, the deputy said uncomfortably, but neither can I dismiss it out of hand. I am certain your Admiral Otsoa will caution him against such a rash move. Perhaps, but will he listen? Leandra pressed. This is the critical moment, the eve before the battle. Should he break ranks now, the results would prove disastrous. It would give these usurpers free rein, and since your worlds are the closest in proximity... Despite herself, Chickage shuddered. You must convince him to hold fast, the Prime Minister pressed, not giving her a chance to find her footing. A warning from me will carry little weight, and in fact may even have the opposite effect, whereas if it came from you... I will do what I can, she said at last. I believe I can make him see reason, and remind him of the greater cause he serves. He has come far these past years, but I do not know if he has come far enough. I understand, Leandra bowed, and I leave the matter in your capable hands. If there is anything I can do to assist you in this endeavor, please do not hesitate to ask. I will, Prime Minister, the Deputy Diaksh replied, sketching a formal bow of her own. May our efforts grant us victory, she intoned, before she blanked the screen. And that is how we do it. Leandra chuckled to the empty room as she leaned back in her chair and rewarded herself with a well-earned drink.